All right, before we get into this lesson here, I want to do this little music visualization with you with respect to the learning process, because I think far too many people underestimate the importance of organizing your mindset so that it's reflected to sort of obey these basic principles. When I flash up this picture of a hammer, you're probably almost immediately thinking of a nail, because the hammer and the nail work together. They are designed in conjunction with each other. The same thing could be said about the door and the key. Once I put the key in the door, I can open said door and I can move to whatever is beyond. This is how we acquire knowledge. We take two dissimilar pieces of information, if you will, the door and the key, and we make a connection between the two so that we can understand its function and its use and its application. When you're talking about learning music, you start to get into this problem of compartmentalized learning, meaning chords, scales, arpeggios, and music theory tend to inhibit their own exclusive sphere. And you have to understand that this is the wrong way to organize your mindset. You need to bring all of them together so that they intersect in like this sort of Venn diagram, if you will, where each piece essentially aids and assists in the education of the next piece. And using all of them together is what really unlocks the power of music, not just being really, really good at one or the other. Think of music as white light, and we're the prism. And as soon as the music hits us, we can use music theory to break down that white light into its various sort of constituent parts. And it creates the spectrum. And you can see in the spectrum, at the top here, we have chords, because that's an incredibly important piece of information. At the bottom, you have music theory, the organizational theory with respect to all of sort of the rules and regulations, if you will, of music. And then in the middle, you have scales and arpeggios, which are just essentially different versions of chords, but without the harmony and whatnot, you start to get into a bit of a problem. Songs are based around harmony, right? Chord movements, so that ends up being at the very top. Then scales, of course, creating the melodic content, and arpeggios is very important, but it's scales and chords essentially put together. So you have to basically get your mind wrapped around this idea that you have to take all the elements and put them together at the same time and then practice that way. And when you do that, you get the maximum benefit. Practicing minor pentatonic scales on their own, good. Practicing those scales in conjunction with the major scale, better. Door and key kind of situation. Practicing arpeggios and chords, that's the hammer and nail. And then, of course, moving between them and then using some music theory, you can fully unlock the power of music. So right there is job number one, organizing your thoughts such that you can understand this basic principle. Combine these elements together, practice them together, and you will be so much better in such a faster amount of time. There it is. Let's get into this lesson. In this first exercise, we're working in the key of G major, but I thought we could be sneaky and do the 5 of 6, meaning that I'm going to move to the 6th note of the G major scale, which is the note E, and I'm going to look from the A string, the 7th fret, directly below at the 7th fret on the low E string. That's going to tell me what's a fifth away from it, and that's the note B, and I'm going to convert that B from a minor chord, normally the 3rd degree, into a dominant 7 chord, making it the 5 of 6 of the key of E major, okay? So G major and E major are loosely related, and I can sneak that B7 chord in there, and it's going to sound great. So I'm starting off the idea in the Aeolian position, 12th fret. I'm going to play the standard E harmonic minor shape, ascending. And from there, I'm going to slip down a half step to get to the B7 position as a secondary dominant using the Locrian shape. And from there, I'm going to slip back up a half step into the E minor pentatonic shape at the 12th fret again, and then just end the idea. And this is a great example of starting to use more outside sounds, but ones that basically complement and create synergy, which is a very important concept in music. So let's listen to it slowly and flash up the scale charts. All right, with this next one here, we're kicking up the complexity significantly. We're working in G major again. So we're going to start off in the Dorian position, the note A, 5th fret, low E string. And we're going to play the melodic minor scale associated with that Dorian position. And from there, I'm going to slide down into the Locrian position relative to G major, and I'm going to play F sharp minor 7 flat 5. And from there, now I'm going to move up into the Dorian position, okay? Again, essentially at the note A. But then I'm going to move quickly into the Phrygian position because I want to use the harmonic minor, okay? So notice now I'm using the melodic minor and the harmonic minor in the same idea. And it kind of gives you a slightly different flavor each one, and it's great to hear them sort of pair off against each other. Right, so I'm basically doing a small chunk in Dorian, then I'm doing another small chunk in Phrygian, moving up to the Mixolydian position, another small chunk, of course, and then finally ending in Aeolian. From there, I'm going to jump down to the Lydian position again, relative to G major. So that's the F Lydian position. And I'm going to play F sharp minor 7 flat 5 because that happens there anyways because of the inversions of the F sharp minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio sequence. Okay, from there, I'm going to jump back up to Aeolian. I'm going to superimpose from the Phrygian position a minor 7 arpeggio. And from there, I'm going to then move back down essentially a whole step from that position and continue on using the same sort of arpeggio sequence and then just substitute in the dominant 7 that's associated with Dorian. I know that's a little tricky. You start to see me sort of like move the entire scale system for just these two steps, in this case starting in Aeolian, but now I'm substituting in Phrygian, and I know Phrygian and Dorian are a half step away or a whole step away from each other, pardon me. And so now I can also play this dominant 7 that happens at Dorian. So I'm seeing it as Phrygian and Dorian rather than Aeolian and Mixolydian, if that helps. And then finally at the very end, I do this G major triad from Phrygian down into Ionian. So again, I'm just doing a connection essentially from the cage system. So I know that was a bit of an involved explanation, but I fired up the scale charts. We're going to do the exact same thing, more scale charts while I play it. Let's do it. All right, with exercise 3 here, again, working in the key of G major, we're just taking and adding more elements now. So essentially we start off in the Dorian position. Dorian's amazing to start off with, like anything in the harmonic minor, the melodic minor. So start there if you're going to start using these scales. And I'm basically doing the harmonic minor version associated with this Dorian position. And that makes my life easier because anytime I'm playing in any key and I get to a Dorian position or I want to superimpose it, I can just play this harmonic minor scale and it'll sound great. That's why it's better to do it based on a position. From there, I'm going to slip down from that Dorian position into Locri, and I'm going to play the D7, dominant 7 arpeggio shape associated with that F sharp there. From there, I'm going to jump up to the Dorian position again, and I'm going to play the whole halftone scale until I get all the way up to the Aeolian position. And from there, of course, I can now descend using G major 7, using 2 strings and the 3 octaves principle. So that's a great way of sort of stringing 2 different ideas together. And of course, they resolve. The whole halftone scale is resolved by the G major 7 arpeggio. From there, I'm down into pentatonic territory. So I'm just going to ascend using Ionian, Dorian, and Phrygian until I get to the G and the B string. Essentially, I'm going to play a series of 6 diatonically in the key of G major. Right? That gets me all the way up to essentially the Lydian position where I want to do this counterpoint idea. It's essentially C Lydian. This is borrowed from Johann Sebastian Bach and countless other classical masters, right? So I descend using the C Lydian first, and then I ascend using B Phrygian. Again, those two are essentially in the key of G major, right? C Lydian and B Phrygian are part of the G major modes. So once I finish the Phrygian counterpoint, I'm going to now jump down to the Phrygian position, and I'm going to play this G major 7, add 9, add 11. I'm sure there's other notes in there too. It's just this cascading arpeggio and scale that I put together. I just really love how it sounds. It's really liquid-like, so it's killer, and I can't stop playing it. I apologize. Right, that gets me all the way down to the pentatonic area. And essentially from there, now I can ascend using Ionian again, Dorian, and Phrygian before I again do this little G major diatonic lick in 6ths. So you've got hybrid in there, you've got intervals, you've got 2-string arpeggios, you've got 6-string arpeggios, you've got the whole halftone scale, the harmonic minor, and you have now also seeing the major modes, Lydian and Phrygian, as a counterpoint idea, which is also sort of like a combination of the scale and the intervals together. So we'll do the whole play it slowly sort of situation, flash up these scale charts one more time, and then you should be good to go. Keep practicing hard. Try to come up with exercises like this for yourself that basically play to your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. And I guarantee you'll see incredible results in a very short period of time because now all of a sudden you're working on all cylinders. We'll see you in the next one.